Facts.
All right, it's a Friday, everybody. That's right, it's a Friday, and it's been a long week. It seems like the weeks get longer and longer as the world gets crazier and crazier. Really, it does. But kind of a sign of how unpredictable and crazy the times are in right now is that we will have a new prime minister. I don't know if it's going to be exactly Sunday, but next week at some point. But the decision will be made who the next prime minister will be on Sunday when Liberals finish their voting. And it's almost an afterthought, not even really being discussed right now. I mean, this is hard to believe. That normally this would be a pretty big story, right? The Liberal Party picking their leader, and again, this person will be the next prime minister of the country, at least for a short amount of time at the very least, and then all expectations are that an election will be called. But you never know what can happen or what will happen. But even beyond that, it'll likely be Mark Carney, but Mark Carney's never been elected to any office at any level. So the next prime minister of this country could be somebody who does not have a seat in the House of Commons. I don't know if that's ever happened before or not, to be honest with you. I suppose I could have done a little research to find out, but not in my memory can I recall that happening. It might have happened a long, long time ago. But it's an afterthought. It's not even something that people are talking about because everything's been overshadowed by what's happening in the United States and what's happening with Donald Trump and what's happening with these tariffs on again, off again. It just never, ever stops. Anyway, this is something that I'm going to ask you if you are paying attention to this. Canada's next prime minister will be decided on Sunday when the Liberals select their leader. Or anybody out there voting in this? From what I can gather, it didn't take a whole lot of effort to become eligible to vote. I don't think there was any monetary necessity. Didn't cost any money, I don't think. And I'm not sure how easy it was to become a member of the Liberal Party and take part in this selection. Are you voting? Do you care? Who would be the best choice? Karina Gould, Frank Baylis, Christian Freeland, or Mark Carney, or none of the above? And how do you think Justin Trudeau will be remembered? Will he? Well, I guess it depends on who you are and what your vantage point is. A history generally is much kinder to people than you would think it would be. Usually, it takes about 10 years out in order for people to start forgetting about some of the bad things that happened and bad decisions that prime ministers made, and generally prime ministers are remembered fondly. Justin Trudeau, I don't know how he'll be remembered. I'm going to ask you that. And who would be the best choice to lead Canada in troubled times? Either of the above, aforementioned Liberal candidates, or Pierre Poilievre? Who do you think is best positioned to lead this country in troubled times and lots of challenges and unknowns? There's some things that you can talk about. Also, the tariff whiplash, on again, off again. How long can this go on? And do you think that politicians appearing on U.S. media and lobbying in Washington help? Does that do any good at all? I suppose it doesn't hurt. But Doug Ford and Danielle Smith and of course, Melanie Joly and other political leaders are making the rounds regularly on American media. Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and they're telling Americans why tariffs are a bad idea and a bad deal for not only our economy but for the U.S. economy. Is that effective at all? And lobbying lawmakers in Washington, is it effective at all? Does it matter? Does Trump care? And how do you feel about Americans? Do you still consider them our best ally, or is this a wake-up call? And can we no longer rely on them economically or militarily? And I would suggest that under this administration, that is certainly the case. And lots of other things I have as well that we can talk about. I've got a number of things in the pile we can get to. We'll open the phone lines in about an hour's time. Something else that I want to quickly throw out there. The social media users continue to claim that Ontario Premier Doug Ford flew to Florida on February 28th, the day after his election victory, but CBC News has confirmed that Ford was in Ontario when that flight took off. The claim originally surfaced after social media users pointed out that a charter plane that was used by the Premier's Progressive Conservative campaign was scheduled to fly to Florida Airport on Friday from Toronto at approximately 1:30. But flight data confirms that the plane did fly to Florida, returning on Sunday. However, it's been confirmed that Doug Ford did not go. But that all said, this is a good example why social media is not a reliable source of information and never will be, in my opinion. Again, thousands and thousands, who knows how many people railed against Doug Ford on social media because they suggested that he went to Florida or claimed that he went to Florida because they saw it on social media. But he did not go to Florida. But again, this is another example, in my opinion, why social media is becoming, if not already, a cesspool. Just an absolute waste of time, in my opinion, in most cases, and not a reliable source of information, and never will be, in my humble opinion. Have you curbed your social media consumption, or are you completely addicted to social media? And how often do you check your social media? That's another thing that you can talk about. Again, we'll open the phone lines in about an hour's time. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness, of course, on the other side of the glass at the control board, doing a fine job, as always. All right, let's get to this. Tolls on the Macdonald and McKay bridges will be coming to an end sooner than expected, March 17th. Stephen Proctor, Communications Manager with the Halifax Harbour Bridges, joins us to talk about this. Stephen, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
No problem. We've got a barn burner of a show for your questions. Lots of information in there. Social media reliability, that could take your whole hour.
Indeed, for sure. Okay, so why the move to the why has the date been moved up? What happened?
Well, it's really we want to have as free flowing of traffic as possible on April 1st. That was what the ask was. So to make that happen, we have to take down the toll booths. And once we start to take down a toll booth, then the capacity to actually charge a toll ends. And so we can't. So we're starting our first weekend is the closure the weekend of the 14th. So the Macdonald Bridge will be closed. They start to put down things, so we can't charge tolls anymore. So and then it takes a couple of weeks, and then the whole Macdonald Bridge will be like free flow traffic. And then we're moving over to the McKay, where we'll start to demolish the McKay. But if I can just mention one thing, on March 17th, when the tolls officially come off, people are going to find on the McKay Bridge, even though we close the Macdonald for the weekend, when it's open on the Monday, they're going to find a different configuration. We're going to be working, so all the traffic is going to be pushed to the 3 lanes on the outsides of the bridge, mm-hmm. The big holes where the big trucks go through. Everybody is going to go through that, so that we can start to take down the middle lanes of the bridge before the actual closure. So the middle section will be like a work zone. So it's going to be a big look for everybody. It's going to be a new look. So we're urging everybody caution and drive carefully. And the new piece, again, new piece is, so we now have better dates for the closures on the McKay. So there'll be weekend closures on the McKay between March 26th and April 14th. So it's going to be a lot of closures sort of back to back, but at the end of the day, this is going to be worth it for everybody to have free flow traffic.
Okay, so the Macdonald Bridge, the closures are March 14th and March 21st, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the McKay Bridge to the 26th of March and April 14th.
Yeah.
Any anticipation that could be added weekends, or are you quite confident that the work can get done under those time restraints?
Yeah, nothing we've never done it before. They've been up for 70 years. There may be some challenges that we don't understand. We put out timelines that we hope will work. If it snows, if there's a blizzard, and certainly we can have the Sheila's brush kind of thing happen in Nova Scotia easily. We can't do the work. That could delay the project. So everything is tentative. Everything is weather dependent. and we're working as best as we can and as fast as we can to get this done safely.
What about the cost associated with removing the tolls? I would think it wouldn't be cheap.
No, it's not cheap. It's not nothing. We don't know what that number is because, even after we get the toll booths removed, there's a significant piece of infrastructure that we'll be carrying on for months afterwards to realign the road up from the McKay so that you're going to get when we get the toll booth down, we're going to be looking at a 50-kilometer speed limit. But in some months after that, we're going to have to realign the roadway, and we're looking to keep it get it to a 70-kilometer from the 111 straight across the bridge. So, but it's going to take some time. So, yes, it's not going to be nothing, but we don't know what the money is at this point.
All right. So the plans for traffic flow and all of that jazz, that's all been worked out, has it? That's all been finalized?
Yeah. Well, pretty much finalized. Certainly the Macdonald, everything on the Macdonald. If you go to the HHB website, there's a map there of what it's going to look like. That's all worked out. In the next day or two, there should be a map for what the McKay is going to look like. So if people have any questions, they can just email us at the bridge, and we'll help them along to understand it if there's questions. But the idea is this whole simplifies it. There's no more merging for lanes and that sort of thing. It will look just like you're driving on the 111. It'll just be the same. The choices will be the same.
All right. There's a lot of speculation as to how this will impact traffic flow and traffic throughout that area in both bridges. And any idea, or is this going to be wait and see? We just don't know.
I don't think there'll be any change on the Macdonald at all because the factors are the lights at both ends of the bridge. That's what it is. So that's not going to change because the actual toll booth has never been an impediment. On the McKay, there's an opportunity for more free flowing traffic, but there is the possibility that there'll actually be more of it. We don't know that that's going to happen. We're planning for that. We're trying to create a system that is free flow as possible.
Yeah, but again,
there will be a wait and see. Honestly, there will be a wait and see, and for the first little bit, there's going to be some people who are saying I don't understand what's going on. Do I go here? Do I go there? And so everybody just has to take a minute, and it will work.
All right, administratively, we had this conversation before, but for those who didn't hear it, we'll kind of review some of this stuff. People who have a Mac Pass and they want to get reimbursed the money that they have in their account, that's going to happen automatically, but only if people go to make sure that their banking information or their credit card information is updated. So just remind everybody what they need to do there to make sure that they get their refunds.
But just go to your account, make sure it's up to date, make sure your credit card is in place. I will note it's a small piece here, but it would be of interest to people. Is a lot of people have auto deposit for their things. When they get to a certain level, their bank automatically tops it up and stuff like that. We're cutting that off on Wednesday of next week. So you won't be able to top up your account, or your account won't automatically top up effective Wednesday. Usually those top-up notices come when you've still got 4 or 5 trips across the bridge, and you should be able to make it for the balance of that week. And if there's any problem, we'll figure that out for you. But that's another piece that people are asking about in terms of their banking. So automatic debit card payments, automatic credit card payments, those end on next Wednesday. No sense in giving more money than you're ever going to spend, and then you just have to come and collect it back anyway.
Okay, so I received some calls over the last couple of weeks from people who are concerned about the future of the bridges and concerned about the administration of the bridges. Again, this is something that you and I talked about the last time you were in studio, but I think it bears repeating for those who don't know. The Crown Corporation, which is Halifax Harbour Bridges, which you work for, that remains in place. And just give everybody an overview about the administration and the management of the bridge, because there's some confusion out there in the community.
Sure. No, there absolutely is confusion, and I'm glad for the opportunity to clarify. The bridge, as it is, we just had a name change in terms of, because we're not collecting cash anymore. We're just becoming a reporting entity as opposed to a monetary entity. But beyond that, everything else stays in the same. We've got all our operations staff, we've got all our enforcement staff, we've got all our engineering staff, we've got all our maintenance staff, nothing like that. All the expertise that we've garnished over the past number of years doesn't disappear. We have that. Bridges are completely different than any other kind of infrastructure that the province has. It's different than the concrete bridges they have there. So we have the expertise, and we're not going to lose that. That is all in place. So that should not be a concern for people that somebody new is going to come and be working on the bridge. Everything stands in terms of us. We have a board. All our material has to be approved by a board. All our budgets have to be approved by a board. So, and then that's all submitted to government.
All right, it's roughly, I think, going off memory here, but $35 million in revenue that's collected through the tolls. Is that number correct?
Yeah, 35 to 40, depending on the year. Yeah.
Okay, and again, some concern, some confusion about where the pool of money will be for maintenance and all of that. This will be budgeted through the province directly, correct?
That's correct. We got in the next coming up budget that starts on April 1st. We have $85 million for maintenance, which is allowing us to go through with some major projects that unfortunately will result in some further closures of the bridges later on in the year, but more to come on that at another point. But from the maintenance, we're very comfortable that the process is in place that will allow us to make the applications for the money we require from province and justified through our board and then to the government.
Okay, Stephen, listen, appreciate your time. Thanks so much. And if people have any questions about all of this, they can go to your website and get all the relevant information, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Stephen Proctor, Communications Manager, Halifax Harbour Bridges. An advocate opposing the demolition of historic Queen Street houses in Halifax. That when we come back. All right, the demolition of vintage row buildings in downtown Halifax has many people, I shouldn't say many, well, I suppose many people. William Breckenridge, many people concerned here or upset about this. What's your takeaway?
Hi, Todd. Good morning to you. Yes, I've been getting quite the feedback that people are upset and they want change done on how heritage buildings and historic places are respected and maintained and viewed by municipal and provincial governments in Halifax. And the case scenario for that is CBC had just put out a report about the increase in pricing on older rental buildings. We need to maintain our older housing stock because what's going on south of the border has increased the cost of construction materials and whatnot. So, and this is environmentally, these buildings are all going in the landfill. I mean, this is not good in so many ways. And from a place of cultural heritage and pride, these buildings are what connects us to what created Canada. And the buildings on Queen Street were, for the most part, pre-Confederation buildings and had connections to the first mayor of Halifax and all kinds of history and people. And it's that connection that is being so disrespected and lost. And that's how many people are feeling. The other example is, the worry about the demolition of what we know as the Ale House building, but it was really Salvation Army Hall. And that has received over 4,300 signatures on a petition. Mm-hmm. So I think that speaks volumes.
Okay, when it comes to these Queen Street properties, I'm reading a story here from the CBC. It says the writing had been on the wall since 2019 when Halifax Regional Council voted against naming several of the building's heritage properties after owners raised concerns that the designation would reduce their value and restrict possibilities for the properties. So if buildings that are predate Confederation don't qualify as for this designation as heritage properties, I don't know what would.
Well, exactly. And that is, I have to state that's a bold-faced lie that it would devalue. It would actually increase. And through heritage development agreements, as you've seen with the Elmwood on South Street and that, they've been able to accomplish moving that's a large building. It's a large historic building. They lifted it, moved it, and now are adding what, a 9 or 10-story tower in behind. And so that's a prime example of, making Halifax, and being unique and standing out. Too often I hear them say, oh, we've been to this city and we see this and that. Why don't we take pride in what we have here and use it to our advantage and make something that is very much Halifax and very much is Canada, diverse, cultural uniqueness and respect. And I think we can achieve that. And our buildings say that in so many ways. And these buildings did qualify but there was politics involved. I know the full background of it, and it's time to not take that approach anymore. We have lost, according to that same time period, 2019 city reports. They made a map showing how many buildings downtown that could qualify out of that group. I sent that information to you, Todd. Mm-hmm. And what it states is that we're losing well over 65% now, with going to really 70% of those buildings in the downtown core area that could be registered. And those Queen Street ones represent a significant portion of that with very important history to them. Now, I know that they were doing buildings because of that, but there was no imagination. It seems like there's no want or desire to try something different, to stand out. And I think we need to do that in the climate we're in. Through architecture, through culture, through business, and that will make our city a prosperous place. I want to see imagination used. And we have these historic assets to do it, like no other city.
Okay, what are the plans for the parcel of land that's been vacated, that is now available? I think it's over 10,000 square feet as a result of the demolition. What are the plans for that land?
What was unveiled in 2019, the Aalders family owned those for decades and put them into that state of dereliction. We're planning and suggesting somewhere around a 9-story building when that went to city council, and where they were making those arguments against that. So they said they already had a design and they were trying to replicate the form of the building. Well, you have to, because the street is angled, and that has to do with military cannons and whatnot that were part of Artillery Park. So that's what would be there. It's something along the lines of the Bond building that's just behind it, right? The face of Spring Garden Road. And that, because there's a Citadel view plane there too, so the height is restricted. And at 10,000 square feet, it's approximately what you could build with an inset on the 3rd or 4th floor in about, I'd say about 10 feet, and then you'd go up from there with a tower. That's a basic design. It's another glass block. As far as I'm concerned, architecturally, it's not what was there. And, the argument was the color attracted. No, it wasn't the color of the buildings that attracted people. It was the form, the interaction with the street, how they shaped with the street, and how they created, for small businesses, a low-cost place to go. And we're losing that for the downtown, right? And then you've got only larger businesses like conglomerate franchise like Lululemon who can afford the rent. Mm. And that changes the whole dichotomy of business in the downtown. I've seen that growing up downtown. And again, that is a reflection of our old historic buildings, of what they can do for us and provide that space.
William, interesting. I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk again. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Todd. Have a good rest of the day.
All right, take care. William Breckenridge, community advocate. Something that perhaps you might want to weigh in on when we open the phone lines between 11 and 12. I saw this story on the CBC website as well. Predatory companies selling heat pumps by making false rebate promises. Warrants Efficiency Nova Scotia. We'll talk about it when we come back. Saw this story on the CBC website. Efficiency Nova Scotia is warning homeowners of contractors and companies wrongly claiming to be affiliated with the organization and selling heat pump systems with the promise of a rebate that in some cases never materializes. talking about aggressive and predatory sales tactics that could put people at significant risk. Joining us to talk about all of this is Janet Tobin, Communications Manager at Efficiency Nova Scotia. Janet, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it. So how common is this happening?
So we're seeing it happen more and more frequently over the past few months. And it really does seem to be, coming at customers in a number of ways. So it's not just door to door. It's not just cold calling by phone. In some cases, there's aggressive social media posts that we're seeing as well. So we are seeing an instance, at the very least, in the number of ads and the number of tactics we're seeing. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we're not seeing it's not thousands of homeowners that have come to us having been targeted, thankfully. But we really want to get ahead of it to make sure that, more homeowners than the ones that have been identified aren't being targeted.
All right. So the companies themselves are legitimate. They do the work and all of that stuff. Are they correct?
Yeah, 100%. So they are legitimate contractors, and there is a place in the market, for companies that offer financing and for companies that are more sales model-y that can support customers that way. What we really want to make sure that customers are aware of is that if you're signing up for these things, that you understand what you're signing up for. Often what we're hearing is that these companies are misleading customers. They're being very aggressive. They're, in some cases, flat out lying about being with us or being affiliated with us and promising rebates coming faster. And then often in those cases, applications have actually never been submitted to us. So by the time, you start paying your financing payments, expecting a rebate check to come, when you give us a call, we don't even have an application in some cases. So, and people are really starting, really backwards or really behind the eight ball on that process, which just can cause so much stress and financial hardship for customers.
All right. So what are some red flags here that you would like people to know about?
Yeah, so the big things that I would flag for folks are, as a general rule, if something sounds too good to be true, it often is. Some of these companies are making really bold claims in their ads that they can fast track approvals, or that they can get you a rebate faster, or that, everything will be 100% free. Don't worry about anything. Those types of claims, are really bold. Rebates are really robust in the province, but there is a process, and you do need to meet the criteria. So, definitely watch out for that. We want everyone to understand the process. You do need to apply to Efficiency Nova Scotia and get pre-approval for most of the programs that these folks are talking about. So often anyone trying to get you to circumvent that process or apply with them, or that they'll take care of the paperwork for you, is cause for pause. And I would take a minute to do your research. Also, companies that have names that sound awfully close to ours. So we're Efficiency Nova Scotia, but we've seen some of these ads say Nova Scotia Efficiency Rebates or Efficiency Rebate Programs Nova Scotia. Those aren't real company names. So often there is another company behind those, but those, it's definitely intended to mislead customers and have them believe that it's us. Again, they will come out and they will do the install, and they will in most cases that we've seen, install the appropriate equipment. It's just that, they're certainly not helping customers then properly navigate our programs and really leaving folks in the lurch. And we're often also seeing that they're heavily inflating the price of some of these heat pump installations. So then our rebates wouldn't necessarily cover them in full anyway.
All right, it might not be your area of expertise, but is there any recourse that people can utilize if, in fact, they fall victim to this?
Yeah, so we have been in contact with the RCMP and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and so that is, really the best first step for a homeowner that feels they've been put in a bad situation, is call their local law enforcement and report that to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. That's the best way we can make sure we're logging and keeping track of the instances. But certainly if a customer thinks they've applied with us, or is unsure where they're at in the process, unsure if something's been done, please give us a call, reach out to us through our website, and we can look up files and we can make sure everything seems like it makes sense. We can make sure, that what you've been told you might qualify for is legitimate and kind of guide you down the right path.
All right, there are three unaffiliated sellers targeting the unaffiliated sellers are targeting three core programs. Reading the story, what are the programs?
Yeah, so the three programs that seem to be most targeted are our home warming program, which provides free energy efficiency upgrades, including heat pumps, to lower income Nova Scotians. And then the other two programs, both are designed to support low and moderate income homeowners, and that's our moderate income rebate program, as well as the oil to heat pump affordability, or OPA program. So those seem to be the three that we're seeing as being the biggest targets. They are also the three that offer the highest level of rebates to support customers right now. So, I understand why it seems like an opportunity for someone to take advantage of that, but also that means we're talking about homeowners that are often low and moderate income and, maybe don't have, $20,000, $30,000, sitting around the bank to make these sorts of upgrades. So this is a massive commitment to begin with, which is why the rebates are so critical. So then it's extra disheartening to see someone taking advantage of people who are in that situation.
All right. From what I can gather reading the story here, people need to generally pre-apply to receive approval before work can be done anyway. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So everyone would apply for one of these programs. We would verify that they meet the criteria. So for those three programs, there would be an income verification. We'd confirm, proof of home ownership. And if the program required that they're using oil heat, that they demonstrate, the oil consumption for that program. So we would verify all of those things. We would then send you a pre-approval or a welcome letter. And that's when you know that you're okay to move forward with that program. Through home warming, you'll actually be assigned a very specific contractor. Through the moderate income and OPA program, you're able to work with contractors of your choosing, but you'll be given very, very clear directions on kind of what those next steps look like. And it's really always in the best interest of customers to make sure you're following that process. So like I said, if you're working with someone that's trying to deviate from that process or provide reassurance that process doesn't matter, I can assure you that it does. And the more we can get folks to understand that process, I think, and follow that process, I think, the more we'll be able to reduce the risk of these types of companies taking advantage of folks.
All right. To me, that would be the number one red flag if somebody's saying, don't worry about applying for rebates until after we do the install. To me, that would be an instant non-starter, right? Yeah. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, for sure. And if someone's found themselves in that situation, certainly reach out to us. We want to, be able to log that so that, it builds more, of a case for us. So we're logging those instances, but we want to be able to support however we can.
Yeah, it's really sad that I know that it goes without saying, but it's sad that people will go out there and be predatory in this way. And if people obviously if these companies have the ability to do the install and all of this stuff, why would they not just get on board with the program and do it right? I don't get this.
I don't get it either, to be honest. And I know we've seen it in other jurisdictions as well. There was, a similar story out of Ontario just last week. Very, very similar scenario. And it's very simple to follow the process. I can understand that, some people want to try and move through it faster. Of course, in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of interest in our programs, so there are wait times, and, sometimes that can frustrate folks. And I can understand, a company wanting to try and move people through faster to maximize profits. I understand all of those things, but we're here to help, and we're here to, at the end of the day, support as many customers as we can. There's more than enough funding to go around and support these customers. So there really is no reason, aside from greed and feeling opportunistic, than to do this and take advantage of customers.
Yeah, for sure. And for legitimate contractors out there doing it right, it sheds a bad light on the whole industry, really, sadly.
It really does. We have an efficiency preferred partner network, which is full of contractors that operate across the province, and they're familiar with our programs, and they're familiar with how to properly support customers, and they're fantastic. And I should note, that those customers do know how to navigate our program, or those companies do know how to navigate our programs and can provide the right level of support. So that's also something that customers can be asking those contractors. It's not always a requirement to work with someone that's part of our Efficiency Preferred Partner Network, but it is a great place to start, and it's a great place to search that database. You can find folks that operate in your region and are, installing the equipment that you're looking for. You can search our whole directory that way. But it really does, harm the entire industry. These are, men and women who work across the province to support customers, and they're doing it the right way. So, sometimes one bad apple can spoil the bunch.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope we did some good today and raise some awareness today. Absolutely. If people have any questions at all before signing anything, contact you guys, right? I think that's sage advice.
Exactly. That's always the best first step.
Yeah. Okay, Janet, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great day.
All right, take care. Janet Tobin, Communications Manager at Efficiency Nova Scotia. The province seeking global investment to unlock critical mineral resources. We'll talk to Sean Kirby when we come back. Sean Kirby is the Executive Director of the Mining Association of Nova Scotia. Sean, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, Todd. Good morning.
Indeed. Okay, Nova Scotia's Premier is inviting major international developers and investors to do business with the province to advance critical mineral opportunities. This must be music to your ears, I'm sure.
Look, we were very grateful to Premier Houston for going to the world's largest annual mining conference last week in Toronto called PDAC. It's tremendously important to us to have the Premier there to show that the government of Nova Scotia supports our industry, that it understands that critical minerals in particular these days are essential to helping achieve climate goals, and to say that Nova Scotia is open for business. We want investment. We want to create more jobs for Nova Scotians. It's a tremendous endorsement for our industry. As an industry today, we employ over 3,000 Nova Scotians. We're the highest paying resource industry in the province with average total compensation of $102,000 a year. But we have so much more potential to grow and to create more jobs for Nova Scotians, especially in rural areas. So the Premier's strong support is just tremendous. We think it's terrific.
Right. I think he was talking about natural gas yesterday, saying that we have 200 years of natural gas under our feet we could use for domestic use. That's just one example of the richness of natural resources that we are endowed with here in this province.
Now, our association represents mining and quarrying, so not natural gas.
I get that, but that's an example of the natural resources that we have, I meant.
Yep. No, for sure. Look, Nova Scotia has been a mining jurisdiction literally for centuries, and it is one of the sort of main reasons why the province has done so well over that period of time. But we're a very large and important part of the province's economy today. Again, we employ over 3,000 Nova Scotians with high-paying jobs, but we have huge potential to create more jobs and to grow and to do more as a province to contribute to the global supply of critical minerals that are essential to achieving climate goals. We've had many mines in the past that mined critical minerals like copper, and we have great potential and a lot of exploration going on these days for lithium. And those are just two examples that are among the more important critical minerals needed to help achieve climate goals like net zero by 2050. So it's a very exciting time for our industry. There's a huge push on globally in order to provide the minerals needed to help achieve climate goals. We need, according to the International Energy Agency, 6 times more minerals for clean energy. So that's a huge challenge for the global mining industry to provide just that sheer quantity of minerals. And Nova Scotia has great potential for them. And so we should do what we can to help out, to contribute to the global effort. But at the same time, that lets us create jobs for Nova Scotians and help generate more government revenues to pay for programs like health and education.
Okay, where are we right now when it comes to legislation? What is allowed, what is not allowed, and where are the regulations? Kind of set the framework as to, or the ground game as to where we are when it comes to what's all those questions.
Yeah, so we're an extremely stringently regulated industry by both the provincial and federal governments. We should be. We are a very different industry from what we were in the past. We are a very sophisticated, modern, high-tech business that takes excellent care of the environment now, that has reduced its injury rate by 90%, 90%, since the Westray Public Inquiry report. We're a very, very different industry from what I think people's perceptions often are. And government regulation and industry best practices are the main reason for that. And so really,
Hi, Sean, you still there?
To environmental management and safety.
Okay, Sean, you cut out for a second there. Could you just repeat a bit of that? Because you cut out for about 30 seconds there.
Sorry, Todd. I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
So we have been a mining jurisdiction for centuries. We have a very important mining industry in the province these days, and great potential in particular to contribute to critical mineral supply that is essential for things like it helping achieve climate goals. But it is absolutely essential that we operate and that we are held to the highest standards in terms of worker safety and the environment. a combination of government regulation and industry practices absolutely does that. And so, it's very important that we have that. But at the same time, we are allowed to basically do most mining in the province. The one area that is an exception is the uranium ban that has existed for almost half a century. And the government is in the process of helping lift the uranium ban, because uranium, again, is key to achieving climate goals as the key nuclear fuel. And countries around the world, including Canada, have committed to tripling nuclear power because it's emissions-free and is seen by experts globally as being essential for achieving, climate goals like net zero. So, look, it's a very exciting time in our industry. We are an important industry in the province, but we have huge potential to grow and create more jobs for Nova Scotians, and we're really delighted that Premier Houston and his government understand that and are taking steps to help us grow and create more jobs for Nova Scotians that will help pay for government programs and help us keep our children here in the province with more economic opportunity.
Is it true that if people discover uranium during mining projects that they have to shut the project down? Is that correct? Somebody mentioned that to me. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I mean, the way the uranium ban works is that in effect there's sort of a limit set that you can't extract any rock that sort of contains over that limit of uranium. It's 100 parts per million, which is sort of the technical detail. But the problem is that uranium is often naturally concentrated in critical minerals deposits of things like copper and lithium. So if you discovered a copper or lithium deposit or another mineral deposit that coincidentally also contained a relatively large quantity of uranium, you would not be able to mine the copper or lithium because the uranium ban would prevent that. Now, none of this makes any sense because there is no health or safety or environmental reason to ban uranium mining. The ban that Nova Scotia has had in place since 1981 was political and based on myths and misconceptions. It was literally announced by the government of the day in the middle of the provincial election campaign that year. So it's really important that the provincial government recognizes that it's not based on science. There is no legitimate reason for the uranium ban, and it's taking steps to fix that. But yeah, it is. It has various, additional impacts that are problematic. One is that it could prevent us mining other critical minerals that are also important to helping achieve climate goals. The uranium ban also prevents, effectively, data collection and information gathering about our uranium deposits, which naturally puts Nova Scotians at greater risk for things like radon gas, which is estimated to kill about 114 Nova Scotians per year, and as well the geohazard of uranium in well water, which is obviously something that a lot of us have, and it's so important to test our well water for that. So lifting the ban, on the one hand, will help, give us the opportunity as an industry to see whether we have economically viable uranium deposits and whether we can contribute to global supply of something that is seen as being necessary to achieving climate goals. But it would also allow us to better understand our uranium deposits to help address geohazards like radon gas and uranium in well water and avoid what would be just a foolish and unnecessary problem if uranium in a deposit of another mineral like lithium or copper, the ban could prevent that other mineral being mined. None of this makes any sense. The provincial government recognizes that and is taking steps to lift the uranium ban, and we applaud them for it.
Of all these minerals, which might be potentially the most lucrative for Nova Scotia?
I can't just pick one. I mean, the reality is we've had many copper mines historically in this province and have great potential for it. In particular, the Coxheath Copper Project in Cape Breton is an example of an historical mine where a modern mine could operate again and contribute to global supply of copper. It's one of the most important minerals in efforts to achieve climate goals because most electrical wiring is made of copper. So the more electric vehicles we build, the more renewable energy we generate, the more we're going to need copper to do that. There's also some great exploration projects going on for lithium right now, and lithium is something that we seem to have significant potential for. And lithium, of course, is the key mineral in the lithium-ion batteries that are used in most electric vehicles. So we have huge potential, both from things we've mined in the past and things that we can potentially mine in future. And all this activity creates jobs for Nova Scotians and more government revenues to help pay for things like health and education. So it really is an exciting time, and we applaud the government of Nova Scotia for recognizing that and taking steps to help support this economic development opportunity.
Okay, lastly, about a minute left. How about gold? Where are we with gold mines here in the province?
Well, Nova Scotia has been a gold mining jurisdiction going all the way back to the mid-1800s. Gold is actually really important in our modern society. For example, it's used in all modern electronics, including in the 2000 computer chips that are used in an average electric vehicle in order to make sure it operates safely and efficiently. We have had a really successful modern gold mine in Nova Scotia, the Moose River mine, which extracted from 2017 to 2023. Unfortunately, quite frankly, due to government regulation challenges, our gold mining has somewhat drawn to a halt at this point. So again, we're looking to the provincial government to take a look at its regulation of gold mining to help us get it going again, to help it create jobs. The Moose River mine employed over 300 Nova Scotians with high-paying jobs. It generated millions and millions in tax revenues for governments. It was even able to help clean up 61,000 tons of old historical mine tailings from a century ago and to remediate them so that they won't have any negative environmental impacts anymore. So modern gold mining, again, very sophisticated and science-based and takes excellent care of the environment. And we need to get our gold mines going again. And we look forward to the provincial government working with us on that.
Okay, Sean, appreciate your time as always. We'll talk again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Sean Kirby, Executive Director, Mining Association of Nova Scotia. Your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, it's time to hear from you. 902-405-6000. What would you like to talk about today? Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Lots and lots to talk about. Of course, the tariffs, whiplash. How long can this go on? Back and forth. Trump changes his mind, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason or logic to any of it. And I would suggest at this point there really isn't. I mean, it doesn't make any sense if he was so adamant that tariffs are so great a favorite word in the English language and all of that crap that he disseminates and says. So if they're so good and they're so important and it's so easy to understand and the United States needs to do it, why the reprieve? Why another month to reprieve? I think it's pretty evident why, because he's receiving a lot of backlash from business owners, from the automakers, from farmers, from people in the United States and the stock market. I mean, if you listen to economists and business professors like Ian Lee in particular on this show this week, and Moshe Landers and others, and they will tell you that free trade is generally good for all economies involved. I mean, nothing is perfect, folks. There's no perfect system. There's downside to everything. But tariffs generally in the past have proven to be damaging and destructive to any economy that relies on them. And I think that at some point Donald Trump will have to drop this whole routine. I don't know if I don't know when or for sure if he will. And that's the thing with Trump. He's so unpredictable and so volatile, right? And that's part of the shtick. So what are your thoughts on that and our reaction to it and the unpredictability and the volatility in our economy? Also, Canada's next prime minister will be decided this Sunday when the Liberals select their next leader. Are you voting? Anybody out there voting in this thing? And what's the criteria to vote? I've heard that it's very easy to register. There's no monetary contribution that's necessary. No financial commitment. Again, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But who out there is voting on this thing? And do you care about this? Why do you think that people generally are not paying attention to this? I mean, it's almost an afterthought, which I find hard to believe considering there are lots at stake here. Our next prime minister will be decided on Sunday, and almost nobody's talking about it. And also, of course, Mark Carney, the front runner, is not elected. He's never been elected to public office, let alone a member of parliament. And my good friend Steve Murphy reminds me via text that, of course, John Turner back in the 80s was also a prime minister without a seat. So it's not unprecedented by any stretch, and certainly in modern history it's been done. But some have concerns and feel that it's undemocratic to have a prime minister unelected. So what are your thoughts on the Liberal leadership? Do you care? Are you paying attention? Are you voting? And who do you like? Any Karina Gould fans out there? Frank Baylis, Chrystia Freeland, or Mark Carney? How do you think Justin Trudeau will be remembered? Fondly, or what are your thoughts on Justin Trudeau? We know he's extremely unpopular right now, although he's getting some credit for performing decently during this tariff crisis, although it depends who you talk to. Some would contradict that, but I think for the most part, people feel as though he's done okay, at the very least, through this crisis. But how do you think Justin Trudeau will be remembered through the history lens? And who would be the best choice to lead Canada in troubled times going forward? Any of the above when it comes to the Liberal candidates, including Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre? Who do you think's best positioned? Also, this, and by the way, the number, of course, as always, is 902-405-6000. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Got open lines for you folks. And this story I wanted to talk about and pose a question, and then we'll go to the phone. Social media users continue to claim that Ontario Premier Doug Ford flew to Florida on February 28th, the day after his election victory. But CBC News has confirmed that Ford was in Ontario when that flight took off. The reason why I mention this is because social media, people so often see something on social media, and in particular, if it's something that they agree with or something that resonates with them, and they consider that research and a done deal. And this is an example of which it wasn't the case. But thousands and thousands and thousands of people condemned Doug Ford on social media about going to vacation in Florida at a time when the tariffs war was on after his election, but it was false, and it was proven that he was in Ontario that very night. So what do you think about social media as a source of information? Is it reliable, unreliable? I would suggest that it is unreliable and never will be reliable because of the sheer makeup of social media and the format that it is. And what about your social media consumption? Is it increasing, decreasing? Have you dumped social media recently? Are you addicted to social media? So lots and lots to talk about, folks. Give us a buzz. We got open lines for you, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, actually, I want to talk about social media, and basically, I agree with you. It's in terms of like reliable information, it's almost a complete waste of time. Something I didn't realize until I watched the State of the Union were events in Europe and Trump going on about, the attack on free speech and going after Europe and Canada. The reason we're targets for that is that we're seeking to regulate social media, and that's something that they don't approve of. Now, I'm pretty sure you've had people on your show, but on the CBC as well, many times, sort of talking about the ills of social media in terms of its effects on kids, its addictive nature, it's sort of working to rewiring our brains, but also just that the sort of problems surrounding it, that in the United States and their sort of rush, at the early days of the internet to sort of, roll out this new thing, I guess, that basically the age of consent online is 13. So you can sign up for whatever you want, provided it's not illegal for you, say adult content or something, without your parents' consent. There's also clauses that like any sort of tech companies, online companies, aren't legally responsible for their actions. So they, they can't be sort of held accountable for that. But then there's also the issue of just the algorithms and sort of, the social media giants research indicating that anger and violence and all that kind of stuff really gets a lot of clicks and helps them sell advertising. So they sort of push that. So, there are a lot of legitimate concerns surrounding social media outside the realm of free speech that, need to be discussed, but apparently, Trump and Vance and the United States government, with them being the leaders of it right now, don't really care about that. But just to that sort of point also, in the movie Conclave, I just happened to recently watch that, there's a great quote that certainty is the enemy of unity and tolerance. So just because, you saw a photo of Doug Ford in Florida, maybe you should ask if it's true, or sort of, you saw a post saying that Joe Biden caused COVID and hundreds of millions of people to die. Is that enough in your mind to try, convict, and execute him for that? Or is it sort of, if I saw that, could I possibly be wrong? So it's sort of, let's see me and you have a major disagreement. We're on the phones and we're yelling at each other or whatever. There's a possibility that I might be wrong. There's a possibility that you might be wrong, or there's a possibility that we both might be wrong. So how far is it worth going in that argument, and what sort of extents are we going to quote unquote win when neither one of us might actually, have any kind of hold on the truth at all? So it's just sort of, in this life that, you gotta, uncertainty is an important sort of, I guess part of just being sort of a mature, rational thinker that, you could be wrong, you could have a partial hold on the truth, you might have nothing of it all, and that sort of unknowing is actually the basis of wisdom, because then you'll actually go out to sort of not only sort of seek to confirm what you know, but actually seek to confirm what might be the sort of larger truth, and that's something that social media just really doesn't help in.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, David. Appreciate the call. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, 902-405-6000. We've got lots of open lines for you folks. Give us a call. What would you like to talk about today? Again, 902-405-6000. Again, I think when people find what they like and what resonates with them and what they believe, then they believe that it's a fact, right? It's easy to believe something is true when you support it or it resonates with you, whether it be environmental issues or political issues or whatever it is. And again, that's not research. That's not how research is done. And I think David raised some good points in that you need to, the whole basis of research is having an open mind to alternative opinions and facts and what is disinformation. That's the other thing, right? This is why I have concerns with government intervention when it comes to what goes and what doesn't go on the internet. Because the government of the day and who's making that determination as to what's fact and what isn't, and what's disinformation or misinformation and what isn't, because that in many cases is not cut and dry. In some cases it certainly is. So give us a call, folks. Again, we got lots of open lines for you. 902-405-6000. If you'd like to have a chat, let's do it. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the open hour when we come back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. As mentioned, folks, we've got lots of open lines for you. If you'd like to give us a call and give us a buzz, most days the phone lines are jammed. Today, you guys are a little sleepy out there. It's foggy. It's Friday, perhaps, but give us a call. It's a great opportunity to get in on the fun. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's hear from some of you. Ken says this via email, says, when people search for the truth in all caps, they are mostly interested in finding information which supports their own beliefs and opinion and disregard anything which challenges. That comes from Ken, and I agree with that 100%. And look, we're all guilty of that to a degree. I think when we see something that resonates with us or we agree with, then that can become fact. But the reality is that if you do a little digging, oftentimes there are other points of view that should be considered. Jim says this, I don't know who said it, but it makes sense. The internet is a medium for information, not a source. We can't cite the internet as a source. It's where we access information, but it can often be very difficult to find the actual source of that information. And with AI and bots, this all plays into what Jim says exactly. He's exactly right. It's not the saying, I saw it on Facebook or Instagram or X or whatever the platform is. As soon as I hear that, I become very concerned. Because, again, anything, like I said, the Doug Ford story, people would have probably called into talk radio in Ontario and Toronto and whatever and said, here's Doug Ford going on vacation in Florida. How dare he? And it wasn't true. But again, this was something that was spread around on Facebook or social media. And this is why I have concerns about all of people doing or citing social media. 902-405-6000. Paul says this, what scares me about social media is the algorithm in Facebook, etc. Feed your social media feed with like-minded subjects that you look up on the internet and subjects you follow on social media. It is frightening, and that's exactly correct. If you search all things Donald Trump or Pierre Poilievre or whatever it is, and you're liking sources that are friendly to those or to liberal, whatever it is, you will get that algorithm will quickly start populating your feeds with that exact same information to validate how you feel. And it's all designed to hook you and keep you scrolling. That's the whole purpose of it. So obviously it's not an accurate reflection as to what's going on in the world. How could it be when it's designed to feed you exactly what you want to hear and see? That's the whole purpose of it. That's how they monetize it. 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's see, read some more emails while we wait for some phone calls today. 902-405-6000. Yesterday on the show, this one from Todd, another Todd, says, you were discussing how we take quotes out of context, and it is important to have the whole story. One common quote that gets repeated is that Trudeau said the budget will balance itself. This quote is used to show he knows nothing of the economy and doesn't care. The actual quote was, when you grow the economy, the budget balances itself. Everyone knows that if you are in debt, you either cut spending or make more money. Growing the economy increases revenues, which in turn balances the budget. And he sent me a link to this quote. And that's fair. That's a fair example of that. Because the quote used in attack ads we often hear is that second part of that where Trudeau said the budget will balance itself. Out of context. That all said, I don't think Trudeau had any sweet clue how to balance a budget and didn't care about balancing a budget and still wouldn't. And this is, I think, part of his demise. 902-405-6000. Another email, this one from Stephen. Stephen says, a very smart person who works in the financial world, when Trump places the tariffs, even for just one day, the stock market crash. His billionaire buddies buy up as much stock as they can. Then they wait a day or two, take the tariffs off, and guess what? The stock's going back up. Buy and sell, follow the money. It's all about making as much money as possible. 902-405-6000. Chad's giving us a call. Hi, Chad.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well, you?
I don't want to be keep bringing this guy up, but Trump, he keeps saying that, again yesterday, that the election was rigged. I don't think he can admit he ever lost anything in his life.
He won't let it go. He keeps bringing up Joe Biden. I mean, give me a break. Let it go, bud. Let it go. You won.
I know, and he trashes him all the time too, like that stupid president and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like nothing. And he was the one that negotiated the last deal.
Yeah, I know.
And he's going on about how bad it was and how and you know he's isolated himself for sure. Like he's taken off all kinds of countries.
Well, how does he pull in the wool over so many people's eyes? I mean, including the entire Republican Party. It looks like. I don't get it, Chad.
I think they're all scared of him. They don't have a spine. You know, even J.D. Vance. Apparently, he was on that call with Trudeau.
Yeah.
Apparently, and they were cursing at him and stuff, and he was chiming in.
Oh yeah, J.D. Vance is. I don't even want to say what I think of J.D. Vance, to be honest.
No, I don't either. But he's like, and what was it? A few years ago, he was anti-Trump.
Yeah, he called him Hitler, I think.
Yeah.
I
think the Kool-Aid. I think they're all drinking that.
Well, it's power, right? They're addicted to power, and they'll do anything to stay in power. And if it means turning their face and turning away from reality and the truth, they'll do it. The people are addicted to power, Chad. That's why they are politicians often.
Oh yeah, and then he's going after he's picking on Canada, but yesterday he was talking about France wouldn't come to defend us and UK won't come to defend us, so he's like kind of the poor me shtick.
Indeed. Okay, thanks, pal. Take care.
Have a good day.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Al, hello.
Yeah, hey Todd. This is just something that you're talking about with social media and everything. And how Mr. Trump tells us we're all going to have cheaper taxes when we're the 51st state. So in January, I was at a business meeting in San Francisco, and my hearing aid actually got stuck in my ear. And you can laugh, it's quite funny. And I ended up going to a walk-in, and this morning in the mail, I got my copy from the insurance company as to how much it costs for 18 minutes in a San Francisco ER. And that was 4,000 American dollars for 18 minutes.
Wow.
How is that? And this is right in front of me. This isn't social media. This isn't a friend of a friend of a friend. Mm-hmm. This is what my insurance company was charged for it's actually written on here, the time spent with physician was 18 minutes. Now, to make that even more, just like wow, in February I slipped over on the ice, which is just what happens on my driveway, and my friend got me to the hospital, and they were great, absolutely fantastic Nova Scotia doctors and nurses, and they wouldn't even let me go for over 2 hours, and I was perfectly fine, just a bruise on my head and one on my elbow, and not a penny. So how is it cheaper taxes when for 18 minutes costs you 4,000 American dollars, and yet great Nova Scotia healthcare? We pay taxes. Yeah, they're probably high, but no one knows when they're going to get sick, and no one knows when they're going to need the doctor. And do you really want to go, I don't feel well, but I better check my bank account?
Yeah. Amen. Totally, Al. Appreciate the call.
I mean, that's all I got to say, and, great show, and thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye. Absolutely, well said. 902-405-6000. I was just told via email that it's March break, and that may be why people are so quiet out there today, because maybe everybody is away already, or they're starting their March break, but we got open lines for you folks. Give us a call. If you've never been on the show before, this is a good opportunity. Give us a call. Let Vanessa know that you're a first-time caller. And that certainly is a cue for me when I see that on the screen to grab your call, because we love first-time callers. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. We'll continue with the open hour when we come back.
Max.
All right, we got an open hour, folks. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. And just as I mentioned, March break, I'm booking, Vanessa and I are booking ahead, obviously, the next week. And I'm starting to get emails back from all kinds of people saying, I'm off this week, March break. I'm off next week, March break. And it's just, it's unbelievable. We go through Christmas, in which it's 2 or 3 weeks off that people take. And then March break, everybody's off. And then everybody's off all summer. It just never stops with vacations. I don't know where people get all the time to be on vacation. I have no idea, but I was literally driving here this morning, and that all makes sense now. There was almost zero traffic, nothing, at about 7 o'clock down Herring Cove Road. Because everybody's away on vacation. I don't know. Maybe I'm just jealous. I think my envy is coming through here. But I don't know how people can take all this time off, but they do. They get it. 902-405-6000, or work from home, I guess. People work from home still. I don't begrudge that, by the way. Look, if people can work from home, they can work from home. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. I'm not convinced that people are as productive as they could be, but data would perhaps show otherwise. 902-405-6000. Nonetheless, I digress. Mike, hello.
Good morning, Todd. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well, you?
Good, thanks. I'll be brief. Few remarks in referencing what's going on with Washington. I get a general sense that, unfortunately, even despite the fact that there are many within his own party will hold the line and accept what the president is doing, and of course he does have the supporters among those, even those including those who support what Elon Musk is doing with Doge and so on. But respectfully, at the same time, those commentators will make saying, well, at least the president is doing something. He's making an effort. But that sort of default response doesn't answer the question, is that Trump doesn't discern or take the time to educate himself on what can be done effectively. There certainly could be significant waste in regarding matters of federal programs, but a simple going through a slash and burn process of eliminating so many positions within the federal government, is that necessarily going to be the most effective way with people losing their jobs, people with experience? And of course, recognizing too that even when he eliminates whistleblowers and people who can actually, independent auditors who analyze matters of waste and efficiency, by that he's not only hurting people who need these programs, but he's also may not even be helping people in his own party in Republican states who could utilize these programs. But that's who he is.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can look at what's going on with Doge, and again, I say I don't know how anybody. I shouldn't say that because I try and be open-minded to other people's opinions, but it's difficult to look at what's happening with Elon Musk. The fact that he's the richest man in the world, this is the guy that's been entrusted and given arbitrary powers, just complete authority to go and slash and burn, and the attitude that he goes about with that chainsaw incident and just this glee that he has to be cutting and lumping everybody into the same basket of bureaucrats and making that a bad word. Look, I just think that it's wrong, and Mike, I think that that's not a bad thing to be looking at the public sector, and we all know there's a lot of waste there, but you can't just go in a month and make these cuts. It's reckless, is what it is.
Absolutely, and again, it's recognized the fact that Trump himself doesn't recognize the importance of even legislation, how you can work across the aisle, with people within your own party, but also with people across the aisle to try to get some effective legislation done. Yeah. He doesn't recognize it or feels it's unnecessary. He goes to go this direction, thinking that this is the key answer, with a man who sadly has not have recognition from Congress. He has no security clearance, and now at this stage he's even looking into gain personal information of people within the federal workforce, and that's naturally caused a lot of alarm. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mike, it looks like you get some dogs to take care of, like more than one, that's for sure.
We have 2 plus the 3 cats.
Okay, pal, take care. Have a good day. Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Again, look, I think that it's a good thing. And it's not easy to cut jobs, and it's not easy to look for waste. It's difficult. But I think that it's necessary, and I think we could be doing that here in Canada and should be doing that here in Canada. Justin Trudeau grew the public sector exponentially over the last 10 years, disproportionately big time to the size of the population growth. And he calls it investing, and I think that there's been reckless spending as a result of it, and I support and applaud anybody who's going to be the next prime minister who's willing to look into that. But I would never support whoever that prime minister is to wield the axe by somebody who's unelected and a billionaire, and give him that type of power and to go and say in the next month slash thousands and tens of thousands of jobs with very little research and very little investigation. That I would not support ever. And I would hope that we never see that here in Canada. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Jordan's giving us a buzz. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, Todd. How's it going?
It's going well, pal. Are you working hard these days? You're a hard worker, aren't you?
Oh, always working hard, yeah. On the job site here. Swinging, paying my taxes, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that, there you go. What's on your mind, pal?
I'm just curious about the tariffs. I can't really quite understand. It's so hard to understand them. So, if they put tariffs on us, who pays? How does that? Do you know, or has anybody been on this show that kind of explain that for a dummy like myself?
Sure. No, you're not a dummy, pal. Not at all. Don't self-deprecate. Listen, it's pretty simple. The importer pays the tax. So if let's say that you're bringing in metal products here in Canada, or let's say your employer is importing. You're in the construction business. Let's say somebody come in HVAC units coming from the United States. Whoever brings those in, if there's a 25% tariff on that, the importer has to pay that to the government. That's a tax. And the way that gets recouped is by the distributor who's selling it has to raise the prices to recoup that money. So ultimately, Nova Scotians pay that tax, that tariff. Just like in the United States right now, all that Trump talks about tariffs, it's really a tax on American consumers is what it is, because they're the ones that have to pay it.
So the stuff they import from us, they're going to be paying more money.
Absolutely. Canadians don't pay that tariff. They pay that tariff. This is why some people, Jordan, think that it's foolish to have counter tariffs, because they think that that's just hurting Nova Scotians when all is said and done. Again, not everybody believes that. Some people believe that you have to hit hard and hit back, but ultimately, if there's 25% tariffs here in Nova Scotia, it's Nova Scotians that are paying that tax. through the sale of the goods go up that amount.
Okay, well, that helps explain it a bit there. Another thing I just wanted to touch on, I just seen an interview with the so-called Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And the way he explained everything, like this after he got his appointment and after everything he went through, it was quite eye-opening, right? To hear it from the man himself as to hearing it from all other outlets.
Okay. How so? Expand on what you mean.
He went through, it was a 3-hour interview. He just went through everything. Like, some of the stuff they're cutting is kind of wasteful spending. I don't know exactly everything that they cut, but some of the stuff that was going on was like just things that weren't, just picture it as like a gym membership and you stop going to the gym, but you never cancel your membership. Yeah. And it kept going on. They're not going to call and tell you that your membership's still being charged or the bridge or whatever. Yeah. So there was some stuff like that. And there was some other, but the interview I can't really reiterate it because.
Who was it? Who did the interview? Was it Joe Rogan?
He was on with Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
So well, as you hear that name, people will discredit.
No, I don't listen. I don't discredit Joe Rogan immediately. I think that he does some good work. I think that he does some poor work, and some could say the same about me. I'm sure, no doubt. We're not always perfect, and
nobody is.
Nobody is. That's right.
It was like because you hear everything in the news cycle, and like you said, the Doug Ford thing. That was not true. He wasn't down there. He does have homes down there, I do believe. Yeah. But he wasn't down there during all this stuff here. Yeah. But it's just so hard but just like I said, I didn't expect him to come on. He was literally talking about everything that's been going on since he was appointed unelectedly or whatever. But there's all kinds of unelected officials in there.
Yeah, like there are absolutely. There absolutely are. Jordan, I think what I would say about I agree that there's tons of waste in the public sector. You know it, you see it, I see it, we all know that it's there. Anybody who doesn't believe it is kidding themselves. There's tons of waste, and there's tons of ways to save millions, if not billions of dollars.
To add to that,
but
every aspect.
That's right, in every aspect.
Healthcare,
100%.
You name it.
100%. But Jordan, what I would say is that I have concern that Elon Musk and yes, some of the cuts that he's making are needed and are good cuts, but I just think that it's the short amount of time and the and just kind of the heavy-handedness of it, and I just think that
the theatrics of it.
Yeah, the theatrics of it, and kind of the glee. These are people, Jordan, when all is said and done, these are human beings that are losing their jobs, and that sucks for anybody. I think you'd agree with that, right?
Yes, I do. I totally agree with that. So there's just so much. It's just everything gets so distorted nowadays. It's just so hard, and they got people fighting amongst each other when we should be just having open dialogue conversations and not screaming at the other here and there.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Jordan. Thanks, pal.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. 902-405-6000. Look, we all fall short of hitting the mark. And I'd be the first to admit it that I do, and that's part of what makes it good is that we're all imperfect and we all have opinions and we all have some grit. And I understand that there are lots of cuts that when all is said and done that Elon Musk is making that you could look at and say, yes, that should be cut. It's a no-brainer. $10 million or whatever. There's lots of examples out there. But I would also add this, that for every one of those examples where it's a no-brainer, or people that have been cut, I would bet, and I don't know what the exact ratio would be, but let's suggest that it's probably 1 for 1, and it might not be quite that. But examples where people are unfairly let go, and it hurts services to the American people when all is said and done, and in some cases quite a bit. So this wielding of the axe approach and the glee behind it, these are human beings losing jobs. And look, I support trimming the fat in the public sector. I do. And I don't have I don't have anything against anybody who's working in the public sector. But the reality is that too much waste, we know that at every level. Anybody who doesn't believe that is kidding themselves. But that said, you can't just do it in a month. I think the rapid nature of it is harmful. And the attitude also is harmful. These are human beings when all is said and done. 902-405-6000. We got some time left for you at the top of the hour. Get some open lines as well. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the open hour when we come back. All right, we got some time left at the top of the hour. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. I must admit, folks, I'm concerned about the lack of interest in what's going on politically with the Liberal leadership here. I really am. I think it's concerning that nobody seems to be thinking about this or cares much about it. I mean, this is going to be the next prime minister of our country decided on Sunday. And nobody cares, it appears. I don't know, maybe some and I asked people, do you care? Are you voting? I don't know anybody who's voting in this thing. I really don't. Anybody out there who's voting in this Liberal leadership? I don't know anybody who is. And perhaps people think that the fix is in, that it's that not the fix is in, but it's predetermined that Mark Carney's going to win this thing, so why bother? Kind of apathy, I guess. I still defer to my stance. Why would Mark Carney ever want to be? Why would anybody want to be the prime minister right now? When you look at all of the challenges that you'll be facing. But anyway, it seems as though people are disengaged based on feedback and not received an email or a call on this today. 10 years ago, this would have been a huge political story. But now, perhaps people are just sick and tired of politics. And I think there's a danger in that. I think that we need to remain engaged in these issues and need to continue to talk about it. I often hear people say, why don't you talk about things that pertain to Canada? Why do you talk about things that happen in the United States all the time? Well, I think it's pretty evident right now with the tariffs, and they directly impact us in a big-time way. That brings that home. But this is an example, I think, that people are generally apathetic when it comes to politics right now. All right, a couple of emails. Again, if you want to get a call in quickly, you can do so. 902-405-6000. This email from Scott says, I just would like to mention that tariffs will have a negative effect on volunteer fire departments all over the province and country. A lot of truck chassis, turnout gear, and equipment are sourced from the United States. Costs for new equipment have already ballooned since the pandemic. Many volunteer departments across Nova Scotia are already struggling, and any extra costs are going to hurt the people living in those communities. And absolutely correct. You talk about the cost of a fire truck, and you add 25% onto that. That's huge money. And you could just go on and on. I saw CTV's newscast yesterday, and they had somebody on they did a spot on of course what's happening in Bridgewater and with these communities with Michelin and the woodlot owners, and some woodlot owners are laying people off already because they're concerned about being able to sell their product into the United States and feel as though they need to, and there's a lot of concern. The auto industry, same thing. I heard a newscast last night, and people working in the auto industry, you don't know week to week what's going to happen, whether or not you're going to have a job or not. But Trump doesn't seem to care. All right, let's see a few more emails here as we wrap up the call-in segment. Don says Donald Trump wants to win a peace deal for the Ukraine-Russia war. His tactic is to bully Ukraine to get Ukraine to agree to Putin's terms. Simple as that. But what some people might not know is that he's got American representatives going to Ukraine to meet with opposition party leaders in Ukraine. They're trying to help as much as possible to dump Zelensky. So if somebody replaces Zelensky, I'm sure they'll be Trump's puppet. Another slimy Trump move. There you go, folks. Who knows what's really true or what isn't true with all of this stuff, though, right? That's the challenge. What is true and what's actually going on, what isn't going on, who knows? Lee says when it comes to the Liberal leadership, says yet another poll from Ecos that jumps the Liberals by 6 or 7% over other pollsters. The boss at Ecos has open disdain for Pierre Poilievre, which has been covered in media stories. Says, I would hope that pollsters try and remain as neutral as possible when gathering data, but that sure doesn't seem to be the way that ECOS operates. That comes from Lee. Tim Powers is a pollster, of course. Abacus Data is their company. He'll join the show later on. He's usually in his 10:30 spot, but today he's traveling, so we'll have him on in about 15 minutes at about 12:15. And I'll talk to him about that very question. This email says, how about we tell Trump we are not open for negotiations anymore and we won't play his game? Interesting, too, how Donald asked our prime minister when the election was going to be. Sounds like he'd like to bully Pierre Poilievre and probably knows he can get away with it. Elbows up. That comes from Dolores. And some people have said that. They've suggested that it's a difficult situation. What do you do, right? How do you deal with this? This is part of the big challenge, right? How do you deal with Donald Trump? Nobody knows. Mark says we are watching this live in real time. Donald Trump, House of Cards, has started to crumble. It's very clear that he does not know what he's doing, that he does not have any clear plan moving forward. You know, it's bad for the Trump administration when Fox News starts criticizing his decisions. Trump is like the pestilent child who keeps crying for attention until the adults in the room stop listening. Canada needs to hold fast and keep standing strong. Trump has peeved off not just Canada, but much of the world at this stage. The future does not bode well for the United States president. He greatly underestimated our resistance. That comes from Mark. And let's see, do I have time for one more email? No, I think that's good. All right, folks. Thanks for those of you who participated. Light calls today, but that's okay. It's March break. And we'll open the phone lines again Monday, of course, and we'll find out what the weekend brings, and we will know who the next prime minister will be at that point in time. And I'll be chatting with Lori Turnbull, by the way, on Monday. Dalhousie University political science professor, regular contributor to the show, and we'll break all of this down with other guests as well. As mentioned, in the next half hour, we'll chat with Tim Powers at about 12:15. But up next, Don Desserud, UPEI political science professor. We'll be back. All right, joining us for a chat is Don Desserud, UPEI political science professor. Don Desserud, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it as always.
Well, you're always welcome.
All right, so we're going to find out who our next prime minister is going to be on Sunday, and I don't know that too many people out there really seem to care right now, to be honest with you, based on what I'm hearing or not hearing in particular.
Not hearing is right. This must be the dullest leadership campaign in a long time. Though, you know, to be fair to them, it'd be very hard to break through the noise that's coming from the south of the border with the tariffs on, tariffs off, and everything else that's going on. And maybe I'm giving them too much credit, maybe this is not unintentional. Maybe they realize that anything that looked dramatic, you know, in terms of conflict between the candidates would simply play badly in times when people are looking for something that's not, you know, conflictual, like we see constantly now with our relationship with the United States. But you know, as far as using this as parties are wont to do as a launching pad for a campaign where people get excited about the new leader and you sort of see the party as this dynamic force. No, it has not succeeded in that respect at all.
So they're not having a traditional convention, or that doesn't exist anymore, or what's going on here?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question, and this is me showing my age. You know, I mean, I think we talked about this a long time ago, but when I was a kid, you know, I was a politics fan as much as I was a sports fan, and that's what politics was like. These conventions in the 60s, you know, the Trudeau convention in 68, like these were huge events, and they were so exciting, and they really got you interested in the process. At least they got me interested. I think they got a lot of people interested.
Yeah.
They were big media events. Now the problem with them, I guess, was that they were pretty elitist. There was a lot of control at the constituency level about who got to go, who got to be a delegate. People and it didn't send the message that the party was really open and you know, democratic in that respect. And I think I know that's the main reason why they switched over to this complicated process, preferential ballots in each ride based on a point system and so forth. But you know, fair enough, and I do see the point, I guess, but you lose a lot as well. You lose the drama, you lose the excitement of the spectacle of the convention hall, of the razzmatazz that they used to use. The candidates come marching in with marching bands, like literally, to get people going. So that's gone, and it's a dull affair. But this one, I have to say, is an extremely dull affair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And Mark Carney's gone underground basically at this point, has he not?
He's been, in my mind anyway, a big disappointment. He must be to the Liberals, but though the polls are still showing him doing well, doing very, very well, and more to the point, other polls are showing that in terms of the general public, he's seen as the more credible leader in terms of dealing with the problems that Canada is expecting to face vis-a-vis the United States. So I take those polls with some grain of salt. People are not really focused on that. So this is not the same as an election campaign. But for somebody who has been named and been bandied about for some time now as a possible major player in the Liberal Party, including as a leader, you would think that he would be far more prepared for this. I'm not putting a whole lot of weight in his performance in the French language debate because I don't think too many people watched it or didn't really register. But he must have known that was coming. You would think he would prepare a little bit better. The business with his citizenship, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of MPs have dual citizenship. He has 3 citizenships. But you'd think he would have prepared for that before getting involved. He must have known that would be a question. How he deals with the whole question of assets moving to the United States or his own personal holdings and making sure that was clear. These are all things you think that he would have prepared a long time ago, and it does make me wonder whether he came in this kind of at the last minute. I mean, maybe he wasn't preparing for this. It was sort of a spur of the moment decision.
Why do you think that really received almost no traction at all? Because to me, it had potential to be something that I don't want to say a scandal, but it seemed to not register at all in the public when it comes to moving his business and what he knew, what he didn't know, and all of that. What are your thoughts on why that didn't really resonate?
It hasn't resonated, but it might yet still. And again, back to what I said earlier, I think mainly because we're overwhelmed by other stories right now, and this one just isn't really making the grade as far as a top concern. It'll be different when the election campaign, I suspect anyway, when the election campaign is actually on, whenever that is, probably sooner than later. But the stranger things have happened. It might not be till the fall, though I think that's a pretty remote possibility, but not impossible. But whatever the case, once the election campaign is in full swing, then I assume that first of all, Poilievre and the CPC will not let that go. They'll be going after that quite aggressively. But I guess that there could be other reasons. It could just be something that people say, well, that's what business people do, and whatever, and then move on. Or they're looking for something quite specific this time around. I'm looking at the ads that both parties have been using already. We think you were an election campaign vis-a-vis Trump, and they're both using Trump as the foil, and both are arguing that the other party is too cozy with Trump. But the difference is the CPC ads are still going back to the old carbon tax Trudeau formula. They've just tagged on Carney to it, and somehow tried to make a link between carbon tax and Donald Trump, which is an odd one, but whatever. And that's looking backwards. That's looking back at what's happened before. And I think the public is not only has moved on, really wants to move on away from the Trudeau years into something new, because they're worried about what's to come. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a question of who they think is going to be the best person to deal with Trump, and it could very well be Poilievre. He might be able to swing that, but right now they seem to be focused too much, I think, on the past.
How quickly will an election be called, do you think?
Well, I don't know because I'm getting a lot of mixed signals. On the one hand, there was a point in which I would have said, yeah, as soon as the leadership is done, he will. Now it looks like they do want to meet the House and get something done. There's talking with the NDP, and if they do that and they get a budget through, they could prorogue again, and then we could, as I said earlier, be pushed into a fall election. Now I think that's really remote. So I still think it'll be sometime, late spring.
Okay, late spring. What do you think? How nasty will the attacks get? We're already seeing the attack ads from the Liberals and the Conservatives on both back and forth. It's going to get ugly, I would dare say.
It's going to be very, very ugly, and ugly is now the name of politics, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing now. There's no more Mr. Nice Guy. There's no more rules about friends have to maintain friendships. There's decorum. Those have been thrown out the window, and that will. And I'm talking about internationally, of course, and with vis-a-vis the United States, but that will bleed into our politics as well. Because once one starts, it'll push the others to do the same, and more than the same to do more, and it will escalate. So, not looking forward to the tone of this next election campaign.
All right, how to deal with Donald Trump, I think, would be a top priority when it comes to deciding who people would support, whether that be Pierre Poilievre or that be Mark Carney or whomever might emerge from the Liberals. What are your thoughts on that question, dealing with Donald Trump, because that is got to be priority, I don't know about one, but it's got to be up there.
Oh, yeah, I think it is priority number one, but what's problematic about that is that I don't know if anyone knows what the answer to that question is. It's not like one party or one leader says, okay, I know how to deal with Trump, this is how you do it. None of us know what the way to deal with him. Is it to deal with him aggressively? Is it to ignore him? Is it to cajole with him? Is it look at world leaders like Starmer and Macron and others who have come and tried to play the flattery game. Is there an approach that says, you know what, Canada is better off not having to deal with the United States unless they absolutely have to? So my focus is going to be on a buy Canadian, diversify our markets approach and ignore Trump, or is it going to be I'm the person who can actually speak to Trump, or is it going to be I'm the person who can take him on? And I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure any of the leaders do. But the public is going to try to figure that out, and whoever gets it right, I think, is the person who's going to do best in this next election. Okay,
Don, always appreciate your insight. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, thank you, too.
All right, take care. Don Desserud, UPEI Political Science Professor. Tim Powers when we come back. All right, joining us for our weekly chat, Tim Powers, Summa Strategies, Abacus Data, friend of the show. Tim Powers, welcome. It's a little out of context because it's not 10:30 or 9:30 your time. It feels weird.
Yeah. Well, I was in Newfoundland this morning and had to fly back, and that's never easy, so that's why we're on right now. But good to be with you, buddy, and I'm looking at Trade Center. No big deals for your beloved Leafs yet? No.
Well, they're looking for another center from what I gather because Matthews isn't scoring, and they only get two guys. And look, it's going to be, I predict the same old routine for the Leafs this year in the playoffs. Not enough depth, not enough defense, same old routine. How's that sound?
Todd, I'm glad you're grasping reality. It's taken us a long time to get you there, but we're here.
All right. Sounds good. Listen, when it comes to the Liberal leadership thing here, I threw the phone lines open this morning, and not a peep on that. Not one person. The level of apathy for this whole thing is to me alarming. I don't know, but what are your thoughts on the mood for this right now?
Well, yeah, that's hard to read, right? I think in the Liberal Party, among Liberal members, they've desperately wanted it because through a whole bunch of circumstances, they've seen their poll numbers improve. It's just going to be utterly fascinating when Mark Carney, likely, who will win on Sunday, the likely winner, becomes Prime Minister next week, and how that plays out over the first few days, because, again, we could be in an election probably a week, 10 days from now, with somebody Canadians don't really know super well, and they don't necessarily know Poilievre that well. So creates all kinds of fascinating scenarios. And what will Trump's behavior be over the course of the election? Because, of course, Todd, we now have gotten this reprieve again until, April 2nd? Yeah. So that will be in the early days of the election. How's that all going to get managed? How will that shape what happens? It's, I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty choppy waters out there.
Yeah, and it just sucks all the oxygen out of the whole thing, right? That's where we're at. It's just there's nothing that people just don't have much left to give.
Well, people are knocked down and beaten. Trying to follow it on a daily basis, I mean, was interesting for whatever you want to consider him as being Scaramucci. You remember him, the Mooch, as they called him, who I think was the second communications director of Donald Trump in his first presidency. I mean, he's advancing a thesis, which I actually agree with, that, this chaotic, all over the place behavior by Donald Trump does reflect poorly on the government, right? And as much as he's trying to showcase himself as a deal maker, look at the mess he's creating in his early days in America, the pushback that he's getting because he can't kind of figure out how to do this the right way. But we're at the receiving end of it, and we just have to kind of roll with it all. And it's tough. I mean, it's probably the first time in living memory that I can think of where a sitting American president is impacting Canadians at every level, every day.
Yeah, and look, it's how much can we endure? I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how much can we endure. We don't have a choice here. That's the problem.
We are going to get our resiliency is going to be pushed, right? I was thinking about this morning. I was like, okay, we got through COVID and we did all of that, but this is a whole other hell. It's even more unpredictable. Eventually, you knew you were dealing with science and public health, which have plans and routines. With this, who knows what we're dealing with?
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to the patriotism of the Canadians and the solidarity of the provincial leaders and all of that, that's all well and good, and I support that, and I love it. I love to see it. But how sustainable is it if, in fact, the tariffs are imposed at some point and for a protracted period of time, job losses, business losses, all these things start happening? How concerned are you that we may become more fragmented and fractured than we already are?
Concerned because, again, if people feel they are imperiled as they did in COVID and they feel isolated, that's when people get worried, right? And that's when we see divisions around who feels like they're included and who feels like they're excluded, and that's tough. It's very worrying.
All right. When it comes to Alberta, of course, Danielle Smith this week came out and again, which was great, solidarity and Canada First and all of that stuff. But I would think that if this thing gets ugly and goes on and drags on, that it could become a temptation for some Albertans, and there's already a small group of Albertans, to start to look at perhaps dissolving the union. Do you think that's, depending on how ugly this thing gets, that's something that would be on the table down the road, or what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, look, there's always been a version of that in Alberta. Mm-hmm. I think it might gain some strength, but I don't see it going too much further. A lot of that's going to depend, of course, on how the federal government manages Alberta's oil in this tariff conflict. I mean, Todd, we could be in a place in May where it's like, all right, well, what I really want to do is renegotiate the USMCA, and I'm a little bored with this, and I'm moving off of that. And I think there's enough people in Alberta that still see the value in Canada and probably have had it reinforced over the course of this week, because they can look and say, all right, is this what you get when you're not part of an enterprise that's generally governed by moderation and rules of law? So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it.
All right, trying to determine or figure out what's going on with Trump when it comes to a motivation for this. Is it fentanyl? What's going on? That's a fool's errand, right? At some point, you just have to give up in trying to figure out what his motivations are. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, every day somebody else is, Lutnick, his commerce secretary, is saying, well, it's probably about USMCA. His press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, ripping the head off a journalist who had a great question about, hey, well, it's only 43 pounds and it fits in a suitcase. Oh, you're disrespecting the president. I mean, I don't know if Trump knows what he's fully after. He lives by the chaos theory. I think, he wants better deals, but better deals around what? Maybe he's hoping through this process he'll shake out, some potential offers or opportunities and can drive forward. But all the things about making America great again and wanting to do that, they don't happen overnight. So how much pain is he prepared to endure? He really did seem to be pushed back a little bit by the reaction of the stock markets. And that, again, as people say, and seems to be evident based on his pullback, something he does pay attention to.
Right. When it comes to something that I've never understood is if it's about fentanyl and the border, how do Canadian border services control what goes into the United States? I don't get that. Maybe you've got some insight I don't have.
Well, we did a good job years ago of getting booze in the United States when there was prohibition down there, and vice versa. So how do you control a 5,000-mile border, right? In the manner in which Donald Trump envisions. But I think, as you're seeing from the Canadian reaction, you focus on those who are trafficking it, those who are producing it. That's if there is an easier way, the more effective way of exercising control. So I think that's what we'll try and do. And you oversee, the stuff that's coming into Canada from overseas. So you're more diligent that way. That requires more manpower and more money. And we've said we're going to spend it and employ it. So will that ever be enough for Donald Trump? I don't know.
Yeah, very interesting times, Tim. Listen, I appreciate it, and thanks for doing this. I know that you're busy, and let's do it again next week.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, take care. Tim Power, Summa Strategies, Abacus Data, friend of the show. When we come back, we'll talk our weekend weather with Allister Aalders. We got sports with Cecil. We got Clinton Wilkins coming in as well. All that, we'll be back.
Thanks.
All right, joining us now is Allister Aalders, our weather specialist. Allister, it was windy last night, man. My, oh my, what a lot of wind.
Yeah, a lot of wind. I don't know about anyone else. My green bin kept being moved around. It was blown over. Saw a similar thing when I was out early this morning. So yeah, we had a lot of wind, a lot of rain. We're starting to see, more hints of more spring storms than winter storms now that we're moving through March, which, I mean, if you're not a fan of the snow, you'll probably take the rain and wind over the snow, but I do know some people were having some issues with water in their basements, so, there are troubles that come with rain in the shoulder seasons, given, the ground in many places is still frozen.
Yeah, they say that March will break your heart, right? You think that the weather's going to be nice, and then we're going to get some more bad weather. That's pretty evident, right?
Yeah, March is very much a month of transition where, you really can't count out winter at this point. I mean, right now it's looking pretty good, but you can't count out winter and even the spring storms around this time of year too. So yeah, we're all the weather does start to get nicer, but it's a gradual transition towards nicer spring weather. Hopefully by April it'll be a bit better.
Yeah, Sheila's brush. What's that? I can't remember now. That's something to do with what's the folklore behind that?
Yeah, that's an old Newfoundland folklore. The origins of that are somewhat mixed. In terms of what exactly Sheila was sweeping, it relates to a possible, I think, husband or partner. also has to do with snow, but it's sometime, mid to late March. It said that, she brushes out the last of winter. So usually around that time we get kind of what they say is one last, brush of winter. Usually it's a more substantial winter system. I mean, we don't always get it, but the timing usually seems to add up that there's a system right around the time of Sheila's brush. So we'll see what we get this year.
All right, and we've got the time change coming up this weekend, and not everybody in the country does that, but let's talk about that, I guess.
Yes, so the clocks spring forward 2 a.m. on Sunday. I mean, I guess most people now, that just happens automatically on your phone and computer. But of course, if you have, battery-powered clocks on your wall or on your nightstand or in your car, you might have to change that. Although some people just leave it; they can't be bothered to change it. But the time will be springing forward 2 a.m. Sunday. So it's recommended that for those more manual clocks that you change them before you go to bed Saturday night. And then, of course, also a good time to check in on your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors and change the batteries in those too, just to make sure that they're all in working order. We lose an hour of sleep, which will not be fun. But the sun will have the daylight, into more of the evening, which I think is always a positive. It's really going to be nice to have.
Oh yeah, it's a good trade-off as far as I'm concerned, and also a lunar eclipse we have coming up next week. Tell us about that.
Yes, we talked about this before, but it's this coming week. It's the night of Thursday into Friday morning. I mean, it's technically Friday morning, but it begins at just before 1 a.m. Friday. So when you go to bed Thursday night is when it will be happening. But if you're perhaps looking to stay up late to hopefully catch it if the weather cooperates. Right now it's looking partly cloudy, so we'll hope that we'll get a bit more clearing, but it looks like there will be opportunities to see it. It will begin, just before 1 a.m. in the early hours of Friday. You will really start to see that shadow move across the moon during, the 2 and 3 o'clock hours, and then you start to see that red that you see with these total eclipses as it nears the max totality, which is around 3:58 a.m. on Friday morning, and then as we go towards sunrise, it will start to move back, and you'll see that shadow move from northwest to southeast off of the moon, and then it all wraps up by 7 o'clock a.m. So it's always a really interesting event. I mean, the timing is not the best if you have to work, especially on Friday morning. But if the weather cooperates and if you're looking to stay up and catch it, it's worth staying up for. It's really neat to experience.
All right. Speaking of the weather, what's the forecast over the next few days?
So the weekend's a bit cool. It's only 0 for Saturday and -1 on Sunday. Comes with windy weather, especially tonight and tomorrow. We'll see some flurries and maybe even a bit of light snow, but nothing that should really accumulate too much, if anything. But a few snow showers possible Saturday, fairly cloudy, some sunny breaks. Mainly cloudy Sunday, but gradual clearing through the afternoon, so sunshine by late day. And then 0 Monday, sun and cloud. But then we trend warmer Tuesday and Wednesday, back into the mid to higher single digits, which is nice. And, of course, March break is next week, so it's perfect timing for the warmer weather, and we're actually going to get a bit of a break. There's a few passing weak disturbances to our north that might spark the occasional shower or flurry, but no major systems of significance on the horizon next week. And with temperatures trending normal, I think we won't have too many complaints if you're looking to spend some time outdoors over March break.
And lastly, also, people need to be careful on lakes and rivers and things because the thaw happens quick. So that's a reminder, right?
Yes, of course. The thaw happens quick. I noticed that when I was out earlier that, they're really starting to thaw, and some are now even open. So even though it's going to be, below freezing tonight and then kind of near or just below freezing for the weekend, the ice likely is not safe anymore. So if you're really wanting to, you'd have to definitely test it 100%, but I really don't think it would be safe. Best to probably just stay off of it for the season. And hey, we had a we had a pretty good ice season this
Yeah,
year for our lakes and ponds. I think probably one of the best we've had in at least in recent years. So I don't think there will be too many complaints. But yeah, best to stay away from those waterways as that ice continues to melt. And obviously we'll see that melt continue next week with the warm-up that's coming too.
Okay, pal. Appreciate it, Al.
Thank you.
All right, take care. You got it. Allister Aalders, our weather specialist. Now, speaking of gurus and specialists, Clinton Wilkins joins me here in studio, our mortgage guru, of course, teeing up Mortgage 101 this weekend. Clinton Wilkins, always great to see you, my friend.
Happy Friday. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing well. I know. Happy Friday. Friday's the absolute best, isn't it?
Friday is the best, and it's leading into the weekend, and we have a great show lined up Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. Spring's around the corner, and we're talking about spring and homeownership. Yeah, and obviously that's a hot topic anytime.
Well, we actually even got a little political this chat.
Yeah, and Mortgage 101, for any of our loyal listeners, it's been going on, 7 years? Yeah. We really don't get into politics at all. Yeah. Really, it's about mortgage finance, it's about real estate, it's about home ownership. But we lead the show off. Like, we go heavy into tariffs. We're talking about Mark Carney, we're talking about Pierre Poilievre, and, we're sharing, I think, a little bit of our personal opinions. Yeah. Certainly, it's going to be very interesting. This week was a roller coaster, Todd. I don't know about you. I felt like it was an emotional roller coaster just with what was going on in the U.S. It's like tariffs are happening, not happening. We're really buckling down here in Canada, and maybe things are getting eased up a little bit. It was all over the place, and coming off of the last 5+ years with COVID, it was an emotional roller coaster, I think, for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. This whole tariff business is going to set some people over the edge, I think.
What do you mean over the edge?
I think just with the concern and the uncertainty and potentially, some rising costs for goods, the change in the Canadian dollar, people are squeezed already based on inflation. Although the inflation numbers are very good and certainly going in the right direction, I think there are concerns that there could be long-term impacts to inflation with this whole trade war and what's going on in the U.S. And how does that impact the price of real estate, and how does that, impact mortgage interest rates too?
And these are things that we talk about on the show, right?
For sure.
Obviously, yeah. But look, it must be difficult because probably a lot of your job is talking people off the ledge, right?
I think we are almost like a counselor as much as we're doing mortgage lending. I think mortgage lending is the easiest part of my job. And we do a lot of transactions, but everybody's situation's different. And a house is also a home. And that's one thing that we have to remember. People have an emotional connection, and, finance is a big piece of people's lives, and it can really impact people from day to day. So we ask a lot of questions. Obviously, a lot of people are nervous. And the one trend that I'm seeing right now is people are really waiting to the last possible minute to try to make decisions, which is not good. So really what we're telling customers, and we talk about this on the show, make the decision early. We're talking like 120 days prior, especially if you're coming up for renewal. Make a decision, get a product in place that works for you, and then if the rates go down, we'll float the rate down. Like today, I just did a bunch of float downs before I came over here to the radio station. I floated down 16 transactions. All those 16 households really are going to be getting some good news here from me today with lower rates. And we do this we do this in mass. And sometimes I'll swipe the entire pipeline depending on what's going on with different lenders. But 16 households are going to get some good news from me today. Nice. But these are transactions that I might have had approved 30 days, 60 days, 90 days ago, and I'm now giving them a lower rate before that transaction.
So what's that mean, float down? I've never heard you use that term before.
So that is basically we get the file approved at whatever the rates are of the day, and we give the floor rate to everyone. We don't get paid based on rate. We get paid based on volume. So obviously a bigger mortgage, I'm getting paid more money. That's just a reality. But when the rates change on what we have access to with the lender, we can then ask the lender to say, hey, give us that lower rate so then we can turn that over and give it to the consumer. The rates that the consumers get have no impact on what our compensation is. Yeah, right. So we want to give everyone the best rate that we can.
And it's not the consumer that pays it either. It's the bank. It's the lender that pays you. People should know that, right?
That's right, yeah. On all our prime lending, we are paid by the consumer. And I think that's one of the misconceptions sometimes out there from...
So you're paid by the lender.
We're paid by the lender,
yeah.
And, that's one of the only things in life that's free. And there's not that many. Especially when we're talking about mortgage finance and real estate. Usually it's just pay. Yeah. But you can certainly get expert mortgage advice from an unbiased mortgage professional. at no cost. So I certainly really encourage people to, get the advice.
And of course, we always include educational aspects. We talk about credit, which is important. We talk about refinance and all of those tools, right? We get into that stuff.
Yeah, and the spring market. Typically, it's the busiest real estate market of the year. Last year I think it was a little bit depressed due to what was going on with the interest rates. But I can tell you, rates are down. We're down 1%, 2% even from the last couple of years. And I think they're going to continue to edge lower. The one word of caution that I would have out there for consumers, I think as soon as we see the rates go down even more, we're going to see more activity in the marketplace, and that is going to drive up the cost of real estate. So again, we say, just like what we said in February, it's date the rate, but you're marrying the home.
There you go.
That's my little piece of humor today. Mortgage lending.
There you go. And of course, people can tune into Mortgage 101, your guide to home ownership, on Saturday and Sunday, 11 till 12 both days. And if they miss it on the radio, they can check it out online.
Yeah, they can certainly check it out online. They can visit our website at teamclinton.ca/radio. It's also here on the 95.7 News Radio website as well. You can listen back years worth of our shows there. And we're all over social. So you can see us on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, YouTube, wherever you want to consume your social media. You can see what Todd and I look like and carrying on all the great stuff that we do, as well as anywhere where you get your podcasts. So Apple Music, Spotify, you can certainly hear our podcast on there as well.
Okay, my friend, always appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Have a great weekend.
You got it. That's Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Sports when we come back. All right, it is time for sports with our sports guru, Cecil Wright. Hello, Cecil.
What's going on,
Todd? Not much, man. Trade deadline day. This used to seem to be a bigger deal than it is this year. I don't know. It just seems to be a bit dull. Anything coming? Any action that you're looking at here?
I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, there has really been no big names changed. Some decent hockey players, but certainly, not a primo name like a Brad Marchand that a lot of people are expecting to be moved. And now they're talking, a couple of days ago, Nick Kyprios was saying that the rumor was that Marchand and Sidney Crosby were going to be going to Colorado to unite with Nathan McKinnon.
Wow.
But now it doesn't seem, it seems like because they got Brock Nelson that's going to, not be the deal now. Now they're saying that your Toronto Maple Leafs are very interested in Brad Marchand.
Really? That'd be very interesting, wouldn't it?
How would you feel about that?
I would love it, depending on what they give up. But look, Marchand's one of those guys. Look, he's one of those guys that you hate him, but if he's on your team, you love him. He's like a Ricky Henderson or one of those guys in another sport, but you hate the guy till he plays for you, then you love him, right?
You've been hammering him for a couple of years, and now, please God, give me the possibility that he'll join my team, and I'll love him.
Oh yeah, I'm for sale for sure. But Marchand, though, he's said that he wants to stay in Boston, is he not?
Well, he does.
Yeah.
And I think his wife's from Rhode Island, so she's grown up close to the city as well, and. All that stuff does come into play, with a lot of these guys who have families. It's different if you're, a bachelor and, you can move without upsetting anything. But, when you have a family and kids in school and, the wife and all that stuff, you do have to give that consideration.
Yeah, I read an interesting story in the Herald this week, not a story, but a column about, I can't remember who wrote it, about Austin Matthews and his lack of production this year, and it's starting to become a concern. I know he's had injuries, but he's certainly not the player he was last year. What are your thoughts on Matthews?
Well, he certainly did nothing in the Four Nations.
Yep.
And, I had high expectations. Here he had been named team captain and all that, and did he have 2 or 3 points? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Something's going on because he's too good a hockey player to be held down like that.
Oh, for sure. Marner, though, is stepping up, but, will he pull a disappearing act in the playoffs? That's the thing with him, right?
Well, I think we all know the answer to that.
Why do I load the table for you? I have no idea why I set the table for you like that. I have to reevaluate what I'm doing here, I think.
You do it so well, though.
So the Leafs, look, it's kind of the same story. They got 2 lines, and after that, there's not much. And And I think that if you look at any NHL, any Stanley Cup team, they always have that depth. It always seems to be that third and fourth lines that really grind it out and are the difference makers. Your top players generally are going to be your top players. But you need that depth, right? Obviously.
You got to have that, at least that third line that can go out there and forecheck the heck out of top lines, and just make them work for every inch of the ice, man. That's what you got to have, especially in the playoffs. And I think when you're playing against physical teams like Florida, you know, those are the lines that go out there and wear out their top line, so that in the second half of the third period, your team still has a chance. And I think that for a long time, I hear you talking about Toronto like in the Stanley Cup paragraph, which that just makes me laugh so hard. I mean, but you might catch a break this year, because the way the Bruins are playing, you might not have to go up against them in the playoffs. Yeah. That means you might have a chance.
Oh, there you go. Thanks for that. How about the Mooseheads? They got a big weekend ahead of them. They need to beat the Sea Dogs tonight, really.
Yeah, they do. The season's on the line for them right here, and you're right. This is the biggest game of the year, and I'll be watching because I really hope that they're able to make the playoffs. I don't expect them to win or anything like that, but I think making the playoffs for a young team would be a good move for them and give them some more motivation for next year, when they'll be a year more experienced and ready to handle the long season.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a long one.
Absolutely. How about baseball? And when we're not that far off. I think a month and a half or so, isn't it, until the season starts?
No, it's even less than that.
Yeah, less than that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the end of March, actually.
Yeah.
I saw that your former boy Juan Soto was a little bit upset yesterday or the day before, and then I'm looking at the Yankees, and I see that your other big boy, who's the big boy there?
Judge? Stanton, yeah.
Stanton, yeah, he's out already.
Yeah, gosh.
Desperate. If they had been able to retain Soto, combined with Judge, they still would be formidable. Now, I just see every team pitching around Aaron Judge. Because who's going to be batting third?
Well, Judge, look, he completely disappeared last year in the playoffs. He was brutal, and he's not getting any younger. His best years may be behind him at this point already.
I agree 100%. I think they are. Yeah. I can't see how anybody can expect him to continue to hit at the same level that he's been hitting the past 3 years. Yeah. Because really, pitchers are going to be wise to him. They're going to throw him that slider down and away. And if he doesn't chase it, walk, so what? Who's the threat that's behind him? Yeah, nobody.
Right. That's right. All right. Before I let you go, anything local you want to get out there?
I just want to congratulate the Halifax West girls team and the Armbray Ospreys for winning the Provincials Division 1, man. Two great teams. And Armbray, they went undefeated all year, and you know how hard that is. Mm-hmm. And I think Halifax West only lost one game all year. So congratulations to both teams.
Okay, Cecil, always enjoy it. Thanks, pal.
See you later.
Okay, take care. Cecil Wright, our sports guru. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to Vanessa Van Den As well as always, on the other side of the glass, doing a fine job. We're back on Monday, 10 o'clock. See you then.